we're going to be talking about embracing hope after pregnancy loss, pregnancy and child loss. And I know it might be a very sensitive and emotional conversation to have, but our guest barristers today, they've been brave enough to say, we're going to talk about it, because we know that there's still a lot of stigma and shame attached to it. I mean, I really don't understand why. So today we thought, let's talk about this thing that nobody wants to talk about. In fact, one of our guest barristers, I think it was Corey, that said that a lot of people that have experienced what they have, it's like being in a club. Everybody knows they're in the club, but nobody wants to talk about it. But today they're going to talk about it. And I'll tell you how I just thought, okay, let's talk about this. I saw something on, I think it was Twitter, and this lady who had lost a child. She was in America, but not only did she lose a child, but she also had to pay to bury that child. And she was talking about the trauma and then people not wanting to talk about it. So, and then I saw something that Corey had posted about her son that she lost. Then Abby reached out to me, just different times, not knowing each other, not knowing that this was going to happen. So yeah, that's why we're here today, to talk about pregnancy and child loss. And the child loss we're going to talk about today is more infancy, not a grown-up child. But anyway, I guess barristers will talk more about that. So I'm going to start off by asking them to just tell us a little bit about themselves. So Abby, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then Corridor will go next.
I'm Abby. I am, well, I'm 30-something years old. Won't go any further than that. And I'm an optometrist.
You're what?
I have been for the last, an optometrist. So I test eyes. I'm an eye specialist. And yeah, so glasses, that's me. Eye conditions, that's what I do and what I love. And yeah, I'm a mum to one amazing little boy. And I'm also quite creative. I like to call myself creative. I like to have an idea and see it come to fruition. So I like to make things, and yeah, so that's me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Abby. And that's Abi Adesina. Corridor, you're next.
Corridor. I'm an accountant by day, and I do party decorations when I'm not doing accounting, so balloons and the like. I've got 2 daughters, and I'm 38.
Okay. Now I think you're breaking up. You're coming in and out.
Oh, let me go without my words. So if that will be correct. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
So I said I'm Corridor. I have 2 daughters. I'm an accountant, and I also creative. I love doing party decor, so I do a lot of balloons and party decorations. Right. And I'm 38.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so again, for those, because I noticed that a lot of people have just joined us, today we're going to be talking about embracing hope after pregnancy and child loss. And I guess barristers today are Abi Adesina and Corridor Adesanya. Talking about pregnancy loss, which is a lot of times it's miscarriages. I went on, there's an association called miscarriageassociation.org, the UK, and they said that 1 in 5 pregnancies end in miscarriage, probably around 250,000 a year. That's a lot. Yesterday I was asking my husband again about it, and he said that in the first, I think he said for 6 to 8 weeks, that a lot of people actually miscarry, but some people don't even know. So it's probably even more than this figure that you've given to us. And then people again suffer from ectopic pregnancy, which is what you had, right? But
yes,
I'm not going to jump the gun. So Abby, can you start off by sharing your story?
Okay. Yes. Okay. I shared my story a few times, and some of you may have heard it before, but I'm going to share it again. So where to start? I got married in 2015, May 2015, and yeah, it was lovely wedding, wonderful time. You know, you're just excited to be married. You know, you're just thinking about life as a married couple. You're not necessarily thinking about children per se, but then, as God would have it, I fell pregnant, and then literally maybe less than 2 months later than the wedding, I found out that I was pregnant, and yeah, it was just like, oh wow, that was a bit of a shock. It wasn't even. I don't know if I was like, oh, like I thought it would take a little bit longer than this, and but okay. It's okay. We haven't enjoyed a lot of married life, but if this is the way it's going to be, we'll deal with it. And so I was like, okay. And then I didn't really know what to do because I'd never ever been pregnant before in my life, and so I was like, I don't know what to expect, I don't know what to do. So obviously you go to Google, and then one day I was like, is it normal that I'm bleeding? You know, I've got a little bit of spotting. So I said, let me find out. Went to my GP, and the GP said, oh, just go to the early pregnancy unit. A lot of the time people do bleed in the, you know, when you first get pregnant. It's called implantation bleeding. So I was there thinking, okay, maybe it's just that. And so went to the early pregnancy unit, and they did a scan for me, and they couldn't really see much. And they were like, oh, maybe it's just, you're just a little bit too early. What we'll do is we'll take your bloods. And I remember that day vividly because I remember going to central London. It was like I had a little secret that nobody knew about, and I was really excited. No, I don't know if I was really excited, if I'm honest, but I was like just thinking it's just my little secret that no one knows about. And then while I was in Oxford Street, I remember them calling me, and they said to me, oh, Miss Adesina, your bloods have come back, but what we're seeing on the bloods is a lot. We should be seeing a little bit more, so we need to see you again tomorrow. And I was like, okay, not knowing anything, I was thinking, okay, well, this is what they need to do. This is probably normal for everybody else. So I remember myself and my husband went there the following day, and then they did a scan again. Then they brought someone else in. It was a senior sonographer, and then the senior sonographer brought someone else in, and I was like, ooh, what's going on here? And then there was like this silence, and they were like, yeah, we're really, really sorry, but you're having an ectopic pregnancy. And I remember saying, oh, what's that? Because it sounds really like, now I probably know too much about ectopic pregnancies, but then 2015, I'd never heard of it. I'd never even, like, maybe I'd heard of it, but it never registered because it was so far removed from me that I didn't think about it. And they were like, yeah, so you're definitely pregnant, but the pregnancy is in your fallopian tube. And I was still very...
Ectopic, sorry to interrupt you. Ectopic pregnancy is when the pregnancy is in the fallopian tube instead of,
yes,
in the womb, of being in the womb.
Instead of in the womb, yes, where it's supposed to be. So yeah, so literally it's supposed to go to the womb to, you know, start growing, but it actually starts growing in the wrong place, which is the fallopian tube. So it still develops like a pregnancy, but it's in the wrong place. And they said, unfortunately, yeah, it's in your fallopian tube. And I said, okay, so and it's supposed to be in your womb. I said, okay, so what do we need to do? In my mind, I'm thinking you're going to do an operation to move the pregnancy to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, this is a very serious situation. We're going to need to take you into surgery today, and you're going to, the chances are you're going to lose your fallopian tube alongside the pregnancy.
Wow.
That was a lot, because I was just like, like from going from here to like someone telling you something completely like different. It was a huge shock to both myself and to my husband, if I'm honest, because I don't think either of us were versed with what ectopics was. And so
how many weeks were you at this point? Do you know?
Sorry?
How many weeks were you? How many weeks pregnant
Well,
were you?
I don't know. To be fair, they said it must have been maybe about 8 to 10, maybe. That's what they were saying, because it was a lot. It was, yeah. So they were like, maybe about, they don't really know because of the bloods, the HCG levels. It depends on what your HCG level is. So
Okay.
They said about 8 weeks, but it could have been a little bit more. And I said, oh, wow. And I was like, wow, I've only just got married in my head. I'm like, how am I dealing with this? Like, I didn't really, to be honest, I don't think I knew what I was feeling at that point. All I knew is that this didn't make sense to me.
Right.
And it was almost like I was I'm not a zombie, but I felt like it was like I was there, but I was not present in what was really going on. Because like someone's telling me, this is what's going to happen to you. This is what's going to happen to you. And so, yeah, they were like, you need to sign these papers because I don't know if people know, but with ectopic pregnancies, it can be life-threatening because if the ectopic ruptures, you can lose a lot of blood and then your enemy could die. Yeah, so basically, that was how serious it was. And I was like, okay, so like you do, I called my mum. That was the only person I really thought, who can help me? Who can, at this point, she didn't even know I was pregnant. So I literally was like, Mummy, this is what's happening. This is what they're saying. And then, she came straight to the hospital, and she was like, even she was confused. Bless her. She was just like, what is this? Like, she didn't get it. And so we were all there in the hospital, very sad. It was a really trying time, like hard.
Yeah.
But then I remember my sisters all came down. Everybody came down because I think everybody was just like, what is this? And so they eventually got me prepped up to have surgery. But to be fair, I also was like, even with my mum, she said she needs to see somebody else. So they got like the senior doctor of the whole hospital to come and scan me again. Yeah. And literally, I remember his name, I think it was Dr. Booker. He said, yeah, unfortunately, it's 100%. She needs to go into surgery today. So they prepped me up and they took me, it was really early hours of the morning. I remember it took a long time for them to see me.
Yeah.
But then they took me into the hospital, into the surgery room to have the procedure done. And I remember just going, because at this point I'd never been to hospital, never stayed overnight at hospital. I'd never had an anesthetic. So just everything was just like, wow, it was a real whirlwind for me. And so I remember just saying that Our Father when it was time for the anesthetic, and then obviously you wake up and then everything's done. And they were like, yeah, this is what happened. And so we've removed the pregnancy. And unfortunately, we've had to also remove your tube because the levels were too high for us to save the tube. And literally so I was left with one tube at that point. And yeah, it was a lot to take in. Like, honestly, I think about it, but I'm like, God, how does someone deal with things like that when you don't necessarily know other people that have been through it? At this point, I didn't know anybody that had an ectopic pregnancy.
When that happened, did the hospital refer you to like a counselor or someone? Because
they offered it.
Now have one tube. It's not something that could have been
small
easy to deal with. Yeah.
So yeah, they offered it, but they also offered, it was more, let's see why this was happening. Let's do lots of tests on you. So I was referred to see a specialist. So ever since then, I've always been under a consultant. And they said to me, ever since you're always going to be considered a high risk. If you're to ever get pregnant again, you'll always be considered as a high risk pregnancy, alongside having fibroids as well. So it was like, oh gosh, there's a lot,
So
a lot for
fibroid too.
I also have fibroids. Yeah, I also had fibroids, but luckily they were quite small, so they were never really worried so much about them.
Right. Okay.
So, yes, just so not to, because I don't want to take up the whole session. My story is long, so I'm trying to cut it to make it concise for everyone to get the full grasp of it. Yeah. So yeah, it was sad. It was horrible. I that time I tried to like almost block it out because I was supposed to be enjoying married life, but I was, and I tried to, but I still had that obviously at the back of my head. So fast forward to 6 months later, October, November.
Yeah.
So this all happened, remember June, end of June, this first one happened. And obviously at this point they told me don't, for the first 3 months, don't do anything. Then obviously 3 months happened, and, I eventually then found out I was pregnant again.
How soon?
And then in end of October, I found out that I was pregnant again.
Right.
And yeah, and then this time I was like, sure, but like, this is God's way of saying, yeah, I've got you. Like, you know, don't worry. I'm everything's gonna be okay. And I was like, God, even with one tube, like it, you know, it's even they say it's obviously is a little bit more difficult to get pregnant with just one tube, but like we all believe nothing is impossible with God. And I was a bit like, wow, that's happened quickly again. And this time, they said as soon as you find out that you're pregnant, you go straight to the early pregnancy unit. Don't even think anywhere else. Just go straight because you need to be scanned. Because once you've had one ectopic, you're at higher risk of having other complications or even another ectopic pregnancy. And obviously, because they'd removed the tube, they were like, yeah, more chances are that should be okay, you know. And at this point as well, if I'm honest, they'd already started to speak to me in my ear to say, to be honest, your safest way of having children would probably be IVF, Mr. and Mrs. Adesina. So maybe you can consider that, you know, as an option rather than take, you know, the possibility of something else happening.
Yeah.
But we thought, you know what, we trust God. And you know, after obviously doing research, we see people that have had other ectopics and went on to have children. And we were like, that would be us by the grace of God. And so we went to the early pregnancy unit. And I remember this time I said to my husband, oh, it's going to be okay. Let me go on my own. You go to work. This one, I'm sure they can't be a problem now. Come on, I've had a bad time. Like, this will be fine.
Yeah.
I remember going to do the scan and it was the same lady, silence again in the room. And I remember thinking, oh Lord, like literally it was almost like somebody was playing a really bad joke. Like it was silence. They brought someone else in and they were like, I'm sorry. I said, for like, what do you mean sorry? Like, sorry. Unfortunately, Mrs. Adesina, it looks like you are having another ectopic pregnancy. And I said,
second tube.
That's what everybody was thinking. This is where God is still on the throne. So let me continue. So they were like, it looks like you're having a second ectopic, but we don't know where it is. Because at this point right now, it looks as though it may have ruptured because there's a lot of fluid in your stomach. And so it looks like this is even more serious. So I said, well, okay. And this, I literally just broke down and I just called my husband. And I don't know how he did it, but he got there within record time. And I was like, how did you get here so quickly? Because it was just like, and he was there. And it was horrible. But if you thought the first time was bad, the second was even worse because it was almost like I was certain that nothing was going to be wrong. And I remember again calling my mum, and then she was like, no, we're going to another hospital. And I thank God that she was very adamant on that because at this point I didn't even have the mouth to even speak. They were like, okay, you need to sign papers to tell us you're going to leave the hospital today because something could happen to you and it would be our fault because, you know, like I said earlier, it's a serious condition. And at this point it had ruptured. So there was blood in my stomach. Yeah. And so we then went to another hospital. And I remember being on the bus with my mom and my husband. We literally, we didn't want to take the car. We didn't know how long things would be. So we just took a bus and went all the way there. And that journey was probably I'll never forget that journey because I remember just being like a child and like resting on my mom's shoulder and being like, oh, mommy, why is this happening to me? You know?
Oh, wow. It's okay. Abi, take your time. Do you have a drink with you there?
I haven't spoken about this for a really long time, so it's a lot.
Do you want to go grab a drink?
That's fine. It's okay. It's just, I always remember that journey on the bus because I just remember my mom said, everything's going to be okay.
Oh, dear.
And it was. So I don't want to leave it on. It was okay. And so we went to the hospital and luckily I had a friend who worked there and she basically got me seen really, really quickly to see a lot of some of the better people. Okay. And so, yes. So I remember the gentleman coming into me he was actually quite abrupt, if I'm honest. He was like, yes, it looks like you're having another ectopic pregnancy and we need to take you straight into surgery today. And I said to the man, but this can't be right. I've already had one. Like, so what are you trying to say? He was like, the chances are we're going to remove your second tube. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I was like, that means I won't be able to have a child. Like, is that what you're basically telling me this now? And he was like, to be honest with you, I don't know why you're worried about having another child when you yourself may not make it. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, is this like that deep? And I was like, oh my God. And then he said, and then I said, okay. So this is my brain going over and over again, ticking, over ticking. And I said, okay, so what happens if it's not in the tube you think it is? Is there any chance it could be anywhere else? Like, they're like, but they've removed the first tube. So where else could it possibly be? And I said, well, what's the chances? He said, maybe 1 in a million, 1 in a billion. And I remember just thinking to myself, God, I need to be that. I need to be that. Like, I need to. Not that I don't even know if I necessarily believed it, but I said it. It was almost like I had a conviction that I'm just going to say what I need to say. And so I said it. And then they prepped me up for surgery, went into surgery. I remember saying to them, before anyone touches me today, I need to please speak to the surgeon that's going to do the procedure today. And they're like, that's not really procedure. That's not really the done thing to do. And I said, okay, so, but I need to speak to them, please, just for 1 minute. And the gentleman was so lovely. And my anaesthetist I remember her, she was amazing. And then it was all orchestrated by, like, now that I look back, I feel like everything was the plan that God had for me, you know? And so she called the gentleman, and it was an older guy. He was Greek. And I said to him, I don't know if you know my history, but I lost a tube less than 6 months ago, and I've only just been married. I haven't been married a year yet. And they're telling me that you might take away my other tube. Do you think that there's anything you could do? And he said, don't worry, I'll look after you. And I said, please, just treat me as you would your daughter. That's all I said. And he said, don't worry. And I said, okay. And then I was put to sleep, woke up, and the first face I saw was my anaesthetist. And she said, we didn't touch your other tube, Abby. It wasn't there. It wasn't there. And I said, huh? Like, obviously you're still very numb and like groggy, but just hearing that, it was almost like God saying, I'm not finished with you. Like, I'm still, it's still, you know, yes, it's hard, but I'm still making sure that you're going to be okay somehow like this. And so, yeah, that was a really big moment, because it was like, God, if you can do that, there's nothing you can't do. So I remember the next morning, the same doctor that told me 1 in a million chance was the same doctor that did my handover and my talking. He was like, I don't know what prayers you were praying, but that I've not seen that in my history of being as a doctor. Your ectopic was stuck in the tube of the one that they removed the first time. That's where it was. Yeah, like it was stuck on the same side that they'd already removed. And he was like, yeah, whatever you were praying. So even that for me is like, God is showing himself true in other people's lives as well, even in doctors, to say, you know. Anyway, so yeah, that was a beautiful miracle. But I remember staying in the hospital for a few days, and you know, obviously no one can really stay with you for all the whole time. I know it was between my mom and then my husband would come, and it would just be one of those. And I remember they brought like a priest lady to come and speak to me, and I just remember saying, I don't understand God's plan in all of this. And she was just trying to comfort me, and she prayed with me. And then I remember after she left, I sat on the bed and I said, God, if you turn this whole situation, I don't know how you're going to do it, because right now I don't really know if I even have the hope or the faith to believe that I will end up with a child, but somehow you need to do something. God, you've already done something here, but I need to know what your real plan is with me in this situation, because it's not, it's just, I said, God, if you do this for me and I have my baby, I will tell everybody about what you've done for me. Like, I can't, and I'm a very private person. Like, this is so, not this, but like talking about things so close. It's so uncomfortable for me naturally, but I thank God because He's given me the ability to do it. I said, I will testify, and nobody's going to be able to stop me testifying that it was you that did it, because I can never take the glory. Nobody else can, not the doctors, not science, nobody will take it apart from you. And so, anyway, we move on. We go home and life goes back to normal as it is. And so I remember just going through the motions of a lot of down times, a lot of like just trying to question why, and also doing research and just understanding why this was all happening to me. And so I remember trying to find people who'd gone through what I'd been through. I didn't know anybody. Like, I felt really like, so I started going on Google, I started going on all sorts of Facebook groups, joined them all. And I found people, I was like, okay, so this one has had one ectopic and had a baby. This one's not good enough for me. I need someone who's had two ectopics and had a baby. So that's how my head was going. And so I would say, that the best part of 2+ years, I wasn't really, in fact, if I'm really honest, I was scared to get pregnant. That's the honest.
Yeah, after 2
I was,
pregnancies, yeah.
I was scared. It was almost like getting pregnant was not even the hard part. It was what would happen once I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
That was the scary part. And obviously you're getting all the questions and people asking, because at this point, not many people knew what I'd been through. I only talked to my family knew, and maybe 2 friends at best knew what I went through. And it's not because I didn't want to share, but I just, being a very private person, I just wanted it to be something that I could just keep myself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and we went on, and it was like maybe 2 years, and then I got pregnant again. And this point, I wasn't even excited. I was just like, yeah, let's see what they're going to do this time. What's going to happen this time round? And also, I want to also highlight a point. During this whole 2 years, I'm not even going to lie and say that even though God helped me in that situation, that my faith didn't waver. My faith wavered so much that I almost felt like, again, like I was just going through the motions, going to church, praying. Did I necessarily believe that I was going to get my miracle? I don't know. And at points I was even very like annoyed that God would allow something like that to happen to me. I was like, but I'm not a bad person. I've not done anything. Why would you allow that to happen to me? And then all these people around me, like friends, and all these people are getting pregnant, they're having their children, 1, 2, all of that. And I was just like, God, I just wanted one. Like, why me, And so I just was like, okay, God, you and I have we've got a relationship, but it was very much I don't know what you're doing, God, but I'm not happy. And I remember going to a retreat. I went with one of my sisters actually to that retreat, and I just knew I had to be there. It's not that I felt like, oh, I really wanted to, but I just almost felt like I had to be there. So I went to the retreat, and everyone, they were praying, and there was one prayer session, and I'll never forget that prayer session. And the lady said, after all, you do your normal prayers and all that stuff, she was like, there are some people and I'd never heard this before. They said, there are some people in here that need to forgive God. I'd never heard that before. I thought it's always, I'm asking God for forgiveness or I'm doing this, but you actually need to forgive, not necessarily because you are not God, but it's almost like you need to release him from that, like, why did you do that to me? And allow him to just, I don't know, heal you or just come in to like give you the hope that you need.
Probably the right word, to heal you. Yeah.
To heal you. And because I was holding a resentment that probably was not allowing me to even be healed, because I was thinking, but God, you're supposed to be all knower, you're supposed to know all this, why did you allow it to happen? And I remember just literally being floored by that, and that really helped a lot, because I think that was where my recovery and my healing and my just just be able to just move forward came from. So I was just, and I'll never forget that, just being able to say, yes, okay, God, I'm not just going to hold this against you.
Interject here because it's so important what you said about questioning God, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just questioning God and saying, God, actually, let me not say question, but asking, having that conversation with God is so important. God, why did this happen? And if you read the Psalms, a lot of the times the psalmists were asking God questions. Why did this happen? I thought you were mighty God. Why did you allow the enemy to conquer us? Those kind of things. So there's actually nothing wrong with that. So sorry, go on. I just thought it's important to.
No, but it's true. It's true. And there's and then Obadiah in the Bible, apparently, well, that whole book of the Bible is a lot about I can't say the word, interrogatory prayer, like almost like, why, God, why are you doing this? I need to understand what your plan is in all of this. So it isn't necessarily unbiblical to be able to ask God these questions, but it's also not being, it's also knowing that God is still able, if that makes sense, but still being able to have that dialogue and that relationship, because otherwise I feel like then we're lying to ourselves that we feel okay, but we're not okay. And it's almost like a lot of the time in Christianity and maybe other religions as well, we hide behind the religion, or we're supposed to be really strong, we're supposed to have all this faith, but we don't necessarily have it. Like, and it's okay not to always have it, but it's also okay to say, God, I don't know how I'm doing this, but I need your help. You're going to have to help me here because I'm falling. And that's how I felt. So anyway, I listened to a lot of worship. For me, I just got by listening to worship music, writing. I used to write a lot. So, which probably not many people know, but I'm sharing now. I used to write little letters to the lost pregnancies, like just to say, I did want to meet you, but this didn't happen, but you're in heaven now with God, so please tell God to send me my own one day. And literally, those are literally the little prayers that I'd write. And just because I'm not a talker, but I can write for hours and just literally just write how I feel. And so that's what I did. And so anyway, fast forward to 2018, and it was a nice year. It was a nice year. I went on holiday. I came back, and I remember going to church that Sunday. And it wasn't like a normal service. They just said, we're not going to do a sermon. We're just going to worship God. And literally, I was running a bit late, and I was just like, I'm missing praise and worship. I was really annoyed that day. And I was like, and then they said, we're only going to worship for the whole. So I was like, wow, God, thank you. And then they said, everyone's going to get on their knees and they're going to ask God for something. And then I asked for the thing that I wanted. And then I said, okay, God. But then something clicked in my head, Abby. And by the way, at this point, I used to take pregnancy tests every single month because I was that scared of getting pregnant. So I should have shares in all of them. Clearview, Clear Blue, all of them. I even started, because at one point it started getting expensive. I used to buy the basic Sainsbury's ones. So I was like, I need to know as soon as anything happens. So I
was just
bought the test.
You wanted to get pregnant, but it must have been a mixed feeling. That
horror,
if I'm pregnant, what will happen?
It's such a hard, I wouldn't say horrible, because some people manage it maybe really well, but the mental side of it is just having the remembrance of, and that's why sometimes it's nice when you pray that God, allows us not to remember so much of what's happened in the past necessarily. So I remember I felt like it was God. I'm going to say it was God. God said, go and buy a test. And this time I said, okay, let me just buy one. I even went for the more expensive one, the digital one. And then I said, okay, went home, didn't even tell my husband. I just did it on my own, and just, took the test, and it was pregnant. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. But there was something in me that was different than the last times. I was like, yes. But then there was almost like there was a flicker. Whereas before I was always scared. This time when I got that positive pregnancy test, it was like, but there was always something, like almost like a wave that was pushing me, like, but what if this one is okay? It was like God was just really quietly. I'm not going to say that I wasn't scared, because that would be a lie. I was scared, but it was still that it could be okay. Right. So I remember, like, I was under the consultant, I was on the recurrent pregnancy losses. I'd been able to see like the top specialists in miscarriages, everything. They'd done all these tests on me, everything. And all they was coming up with all these different random things like T4 cells, this and things I didn't quite understand. And so I remember I had an appointment to go there, I think like maybe a week when I found out what was going on, and to see the consultant. And then I said, it looks like I might be pregnant. And then they said, okay, let's have a look. And so the lady saw the pregnancy, and she was like, Oh wow, okay, yes. So you definitely are pregnant. And we can see a sac, we can see everything there, but there's this blood that we're seeing around the pregnancy. And I said, they were like, so this could be that it could be a threatened miscarriage. I said, I didn't even say anything. I said to myself, I said, the blood that she's seeing is the blood of Jesus that's protecting my baby, not anything else. I don't, I am not a preaching person like that, but
Yeah.
I don't know where that faith came from, because it was almost like when she said it, I just said, no,
No.
not again. Not, no way. 3, you know, I've I've already lost 3. So I don't even know. Did I skip the part that the other time I got pregnant, I lost it. It was a miscarriage. Sorry.
Oh,
I think I
no,
skipped
you
that
did
part
mention that.
completely.
Wow. So,
Yeah. I said 2 years later, I think 2 years later I did get pregnant, but then that also ended up in a miscarriage. But imagine being happy that you had a miscarriage instead of an ectopic. All I was like, well, at least it's not an ectopic. At least I still have my tubes. So that one went. Sorry, this was the 4th pregnancy that I'm talking about. So I think I kind of went above over it. And so yeah, so at this point I'd lost 3, and this was now the 4th. And so yeah, I said it's the blood. It was the blood of Jesus protecting my baby, and so everything we carried on going. I think I spent more time in the hospital than I did. I was always there. Like my sisters would come and join me. Everybody, like it was one of those ones where I was just always there in the hospital, just to check scans. People like usually you have like 3 or 4 scans. I'm sure I have at least 13 pictures, at least 12 or 13 pictures of my scans. And
I guess because of the history,
yeah,
you had to keep monitoring it. Yeah.
and the fibroids, and they were just very, very much almost keeping me like an egg. And I was quite happy with the care, to be honest. I was very happy that I got to see the pregnancy develop. And as God would have it, that baby is my son now, who's 3 years old. So God is awesome. Like, yeah, that baby stayed. And yeah, it was God saying, yeah, you've been through a lot, but I'm giving you even more. Like, I remember my labor, it was, I broke my waters broke, and I went to the hospital. They were like, okay, come back tomorrow maybe. And then they were like, I was just there. I was 3 centimeters dilated. I remember it being at maybe 12 o'clock. She came, the nurse was like, the midwife, sorry, was like, oh, you're still only 3 centimeters dilated. That baby's not coming. Probably maybe tomorrow, relax. I said, I don't know about that. I was in a lot of pain, but I remember maybe less than an hour later, I said, well, if I'm going to be here for another day, I'm not doing anything of it. I need to go to the toilet. They've already sewn me up to do my toilet there. I said, no, 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 not me. I'm not the one who's going to do toilet on the bed. No, thank you. So I said, let's go to the toilet. I put one foot on the floor. I could not move. And she was like, huh? What's going on? She said, sit back on the bed. She said, I can see your baby's head. My baby came out in 3 pushes. He came out 1, 2, 3, and Josiah was here. And she was like, and I don't know if she even knew my history. She said to me, wow, I did not know you were in that much pain. Like, how did you do that? Like, she said, it's women like you that should give birth. And I was like, imagine if she knew what I'd been through. Like, it was almost like, wow, like, God, you are just awesome. And so, yeah, and that's why Josiah's name means God heals. He's also a king in the Bible, but God heals, and that name was so fitting. Josiah Samuel is his name because God hears, and he did hear our prayers. And that's just to say, you know what, God, as much as I've been through, you are just awesome. Like, he's an awesome little boy, a wonderful, just a remembrance of just how wonderful God truly is, you know. And sorry, I forgot a really important point. When I was pregnant as well, so many things came to sort of like just like almost like deter me and just cause problem. Like, my dad, unfortunately, he passed away. Like, he had cancer, and it was really quick, very, very quick. And we lost our dad, and that was just heartbreaking. Like, imagine being happy about having a baby, but then you're hearing that your dad's got cancer. It was too much, too much. And then my dad, I remember there was one day and my dad had chemo, and then There's yeah, it, I just couldn't sleep that day. I kept hearing God say, tell your dad you're pregnant. I was like, no, I'll see him. I'm going to tell him and then I'll show him maybe one day. And he was like, no, I need you to tell your dad. And I wasn't able to sleep. I wasn't able to do anything. I kept hearing, and I said, Daddy, I've got a secret to tell you. And I told him, I said, Daddy, because he's been praying too. He's been, waiting for his grandchildren to come along as well. I said, Daddy, I'm pregnant. And at this point, his voice had already like gone and stuff like that. I remember him saying, praise God. And that was the last time I spoke to my dad ever, because he passed away 2 days later. Or no, 2 days later he passed. It was the 4th I told him, and he passed away 2 days later. And I still have that thanks and just happiness that he was able to take that and hold that in his heart, that, you know what, and Josiah's a boy and everyone says he looks like my dad. So it's like, God, you are just awesome. And my dad lived in Nigeria at this point as well. So there was the whole issue of you're not going to Nigeria. And I was just like, God, this pregnancy is so special. Everyone's like, no, you can't go to Nigeria. Everyone, like, it was almost like it was me against the world. Like nobody, my mum, sisters, everybody was like, no, don't go to Nigeria. I said, I will be there. If God's given me this baby, he will protect me and this baby from anything. And you know what? God took me there and he brought me back, and I was able to say my goodbyes to my dad. And that's how God is just amazing. So that's my testimony, and I hope it encourages somebody that, you know what, no matter what you are faced with, like I was faced with a lot, but God is still God, and he was able to set me afloat, kept me going, just kept me going, kept me
Definitely
going.
awesome. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that testimony.
I hope I haven't taken too much time. Sorry.
Amazing testimony. Wow. I mean, we're still going to ask you lots of questions, but let's hear
No
Korine's
problem.
testimony.